I really appreciate you joining me, and this story is really interesting. How one seizure led to the seizure of a lot of other drugs. A drug dealer who was collecting Class A drugs worth £3.5 million, the police said, from a lorry at a service station in Bedfordshire, which then led to the police finding 156 more kilos inside the lorry. Ahmed Omar, 30 years old from Leytonstone, London, was sentenced to 8 years and 9 months at the end of August after police from the Eastern Regional Organised Crime Unit found 36 kilos in the boot of his hire car. In June 2023, Omar's car was seen to pull up at Toddington Services off the M1 when he met Rudy Clace, who was 62 years old, and the lorry driver, who was responsible for the other drugs. He removed 2 boxes from the trailer and loaded them onto his vehicle. Both men were arrested at the scene, and when the lorries were searched, they found 156 kilos and a delivery of empty pharmaceutical boxes that had medical samples inside. After investigating, they discovered from information downloaded from Omar's phone that he'd been involved in drug dealing for several years, and he'd made inquiries to sellers about importing cannabis. Further inquiries by the Regional Organised Crime Unit found that Clace and Omar were trusted members of an organised crime group, and the blocks of cocaine were destined for onward supply across the UK. Clace, who used his haulage firm as a cover for transporting drugs, was jailed for 20 years in June, and his role for the drug smuggling agency spread across Europe and into Belgium. In total, the police determined that the drugs seized from the lorry and Omar's car were estimated to be worth £19.2 million, and Detective Dean Trollope from the Regional Organised Crime Unit said Omar was part of an OCG that had an important role in supplying the drugs across the country. Thanks to our hard work and the investigation, both Omar and Clace will spend a considerable amount of time behind bars, and the drugs have been taken off the street. So I thought that story was really interesting, and it definitely goes to show how one seizure can lead to another seizure and the whole domino effect that takes place. In some other news coming from the Regional Organised Crime Unit, 3 men who were involved in the large supply of heroin and also cocaine have been sentenced at Bristol Crown Court on the 11th of October. The court heard that James Lee, 34, from Gloucester, would travel to meet Omar Hassan G, 46 years old, from Birmingham to collect drugs that he supplied to his customers in the southwest of the country. The investigation showed trips that took place in April and May of 2024 until officers arrested near his home in Spartan Close on the 16th of May. Cocaine with a street value of 13 grand was seized, along with cash, scales, cling film and other paraphernalia. Lee pleaded guilty to possession of cocaine with intent to supply and was jailed for 4 years. The investigation showed that Omar Hassan G organised the supply of wholesale amounts of heroin across the country. The scale of the supply was shown when the Regional Organised Crime Unit seized a large cardboard box containing 17 blocks of heroin on the 18th of May. This will be worth £2.5 million if sold on the street. The drugs were seized from a car that was heading to Birmingham, and it was driven by James Pecora, 45 years old, and 26-year-old Mohammed Ishmael from Woodfield Road in Birmingham was in the passenger seat. Later the same day, 15 grand of high-purity cocaine was seized from under the floorboards of Hassan G's safe house that was situated on Stoney Lane in Birmingham. Hassan G used his own home on Shirley Road, Birmingham, to store the money made from drug dealing. During a search, officers found several envelopes and packages containing cash that totalled £65,000. He also had hundreds of packs of diazepam, a Class B drug, and also boxes of counterfeit cigarettes. Hassan G, Ishmael and Pecora all pled guilty, and Ishmael was sentenced to 8 years and 3 months for the supply of heroin and 5 years for the supply of cocaine to run concurrently. Pecora was sentenced to 3 years and 9 months for the supply of heroin, and Hassan G will be sentenced at a later date. DCI Adam Smith from Roku said the group was supplying Class A drugs on a wholesale scale, and the same drugs would have ended up on the streets and given to vulnerable users across the country. So I thought this story was really interesting, especially with the amount of drugs that was being involved, and how sometimes it can be ran by somebody that's not really involved directly. They're not really getting their hands dirty as such. They're just like a middleman, or they're operating it from a bigger scale. I really appreciate you joining me for these updates. Please don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe, and I'll be back again very shortly with some more news. Peace.